Did you know that in a world where men commanded armies, made decisions and ruled with absolute power, some women rose up and changed the course of history? They were not just supporting characters in the great biblical narratives. They were at the center of the actions that shaped empires, defying laws, decrees, and even death, always with unshakable faith. When we think of the Bible, our minds naturally turn to the great deeds of men like Moses, David, or Paul. But what if I told you that alongside these names, there are stories of women who had an impact just as great? Women who, with courage and faith, defied the greatest authorities of the ancient world. Women who didn't ask for permission to make a difference, but through their actions caused changes that affected not only their nations, but the destiny of all humanity. They didn't seek fame, nor were they known for their physical strength or armies. They were powerful not for what they had, but for what they were willing to sacrifice. With their choices, with their yes to God, they not only shaped their own history, but impacted the history of the world. And it is these stories that we are going to learn about today. But why are these women so important to us today? What can we learn from them in a time so different from theirs? What did they do that inspires us to act with more faith, more courage, and more wisdom? Today, we are going to discover how these women, who didn't ask for permission, were instruments of God to change the destiny of entire empires and save nations. Before we begin this journey of faith and courage, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel and leave a like. By doing so, you help spread these stories to more people and encourage us to continue bringing more teachings that strengthen our faith and bring us closer to God. Now get ready to see these women in action and understand how they were protagonists in a story that goes far beyond what we imagined. 8th place. Lydia, the businesswoman who opened Europe to the gospel. Lydia was a businesswoman, owner of a fine textile factory, a purple dye merchant, a rare and expensive fabric used by the most powerful people of the time. She lived in Philippi, an important city in Macedonia, and despite being a woman, she managed her own business and had a rare independence for the time. Her trade put her in contact with influential people, but her greatest influence came not from her wealth, but from her faith. When Paul arrived in Philippi, he found a group of women praying by the riverside, and among them was Lydia. She had heard of the God of the Jews, but on that day, upon hearing Paul's preaching, something inside her was awakened. God opened her heart to accept the message of the gospel. Not only did she convert, but she was soon baptized, and with her, all her household. Lydia didn't stop there. She invited Paul and his companions to stay at her house, which became the first support point for the Christian mission in Europe. With her hospitality and resources, she became one of the greatest supporters of Paul's work across the European continent. Her generosity and faith helped lay the foundation for the spread of Christianity in Europe. Lydia's story teaches us that God can use anyone, regardless of their social position, to carry out his plans. Even though she was not a traditional religious leader, she played a crucial role in spreading the Christian faith, showing that faith and concrete action can transform even the greatest empires. 7th place. Ruth, the foreigner who chose loyalty. Ruth was a woman from Moab, a foreigner in a land that was not hers. When her husband died, she had the option to return to her homeland and start a new life. Her mother-in-law, Naomi, was mourning the loss of her sons, and in her despair decided to go back to Bethlehem, her hometown. However, Ruth made a choice that not only changed her life, but also the course of history. Ruth's decision to stay with Naomi led her to a field where she met Boaz, a wealthy and righteous man. Boaz, moved by her loyalty and dedication, took her as his wife, and together they had Obed, who became the grandfather of King David. Ruth, a Moabite, was included in the lineage of Jesus Christ. Her story is a powerful example that God honors loyalty and faithfulness. She not only found a new home, but also became part of the divine plan for the redemption of the world. Ruth teaches us that loyalty to God and others can lead us to places we never imagined. Sixth place, Mary Magdalene, the first witness of the resurrection. Mary Magdalene was a woman who went through great suffering and struggles in her life, having been delivered from 7 demons by Jesus. She was seen by many as a woman of questionable character, but Jesus saw in her a pure heart and true faith. She was one of Jesus' most faithful followers, and when he was crucified, it was she who remained steadfast, unlike the other disciples. On the morning of the 3rd day, Mary Magdalene went to Jesus' tomb, unsure of what she would find. The stone had already been removed, and Jesus' body was no longer there. Desperate, she began to cry. It was then that she heard a voice calling her name. When she turned around, she recognized it was the resurrected Jesus. He chose her to be the first person to witness his resurrection, entrusting her with the mission to announce to the disciples that he was alive. Mary Magdalene was then called by many as the apostle to the apostles. Her story is a great lesson that God can restore and use anyone, regardless of their past. Mary Magdalene teaches us that true faith and dedication to Christ can make us messengers of the gospel in surprising ways. Fifth place, Abigail, the diplomat who stopped an army with words. When David was fleeing from Saul, he met Abigail, the wife of Nabal, a wealthy but foolish man. Nabal had offended David and refused to help him, which made David swear vengeance. However, Abigail, with wisdom and courage, knew that if she did not act, the situation would end in bloodshed. She did not go after David with an army or with force, but with words and humility. She bowed before David and said, "Let the blame fall on me, but not on my house. Do not take this action, for you are being guided by God." What happened? David calmed down and abandoned his vengeance, recognizing that Abigail's wisdom had been given by God. Abigail teaches us that many times the power of words and divine wisdom are more effective than physical strength. She was a woman who, with courage and diplomacy, avoided a tragedy and saved lives, showing that true strength comes from the wisdom God gives us to act at the right moment. Fourth place, Deborah, the woman who judged Israel and raised a nation. Deborah was a woman raised by God in a time of fear, oppression, and silence. While many lived in fear, she remained steadfast. The Bible says that Deborah was a prophetess and a judge in Israel. Under a palm tree, she advised the people, listened to their cases, and provided direction in God's name. In a time when almost no one expected to see a woman in such a position, Deborah became a voice, a leader, and a reference for the entire nation. Israel was suffering at the hands of King Jabin, and the commander of his army, Sisera, was feared by all. He had 900 iron chariots, a military force that seemed impossible to defeat. It was in this scenario that Deborah called Barak and gave him a clear word from God. It was time to rise up for battle. Barak agreed to go only if Deborah went with him, and she did. She did not retreat, hide, or fear. Deborah moved forward, trusting that the victory would not come from human strength, but from the hand of the Lord. At the right moment, Deborah declared that this was the day God would deliver Sisera into the hands of Israel. And that is exactly what happened. The enemy army was defeated, and Sisera ended up falling not by the sword of a great warrior, but by the hand of Jael, another woman used by God that day. Thus, the Lord humbled the powerful and showed once again that his strength does not depend on what men consider great. Deborah's story teaches us that God raises up courageous people when the world seems dominated by fear. She didn't need a crown to have authority. She didn't need armor to be strong. Her strength was in the presence of God, in the courage to obey, and in the faith to advance when all others hesitated. Deborah shows us that when God calls, he also sustains, directs, and delivers victory. Third place, Esther, the queen who risked her life to save her people. Esther was a young Jewish woman who, by God's providence, entered the palace and became queen of Persia. At first glance, it seemed like just a change of life, a move from simplicity to luxury, but behind that crown was a much greater purpose. While she lived in the palace, a wicked plan was being prepared against the Jewish people. Haman, a powerful man in the kingdom, convinced the king to decree the destruction of all the Jews. And suddenly, Esther realized that she was not in the palace by chance. The problem was serious. Even though she was queen, Esther could not simply approach the king whenever she wished. The law was clear. Anyone who approached without being called could be put to death. Still, when Mordecai sent her the warning about the danger, Esther understood that the time had come to act. Before taking any steps, she asked for something essential: fasting. She asked the people to fast for her for 3 days. Esther shows us that before facing great battles, it is necessary to seek God's direction. After that, she gathered courage and entered the king's presence. The heart of that man was inclined by God, and the scepter was extended to her. Esther did not act impulsively. With wisdom, she waited for the right moment, prepared a banquet, and revealed all the evil that had been planned against her people. What seemed like a final sentence began to change at that moment. Haman, who had planned the death of the Jews, ended up suffering his own downfall, and Esther's people were spared. Esther's story teaches us that God can place someone in a strategic position to fulfill a greater purpose. She could have stayed silent. She could have chosen safety. She could have thought only of herself. But she chose to obey, trust, and rise at the right moment. Esther reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding to do what is right, even trembling inside, because we know that God is in control. Second place, Sarah, the woman who waited against all hope. Sarah experienced firsthand the pain of waiting for something that seemed like it would never come. God had promised Abraham that a great nation would come from him. But time passed, the years accumulated, and Sarah's womb remained barren. She carried within her the weight of silence, frustration, and what, to human eyes, seemed impossible to change. It wasn't just a long wait. It was a weight that hurt her soul. When the promise was renewed, Sarah was already elderly. Her body no longer matched the age of a woman who could conceive. So when she heard she would have a child, she laughed. It wasn't a laugh of joy at first. It was the laugh of someone who had suffered too much, who had waited too long, who could no longer imagine the promise coming to fruition. But God did not give up on her. The Lord did not cancel the promise because of Sarah's weakness. On the contrary, He showed that His power is greater than any human limitation. In due time, what seemed impossible happened. Sarah conceived and gave birth to Isaac, the child of promise, and that laugh, once marked by disbelief and pain, became a living testimony of God's faithfulness. The name Isaac carries that very reminder, because God turned years of sorrow into joy and made what seemed like the end into a new beginning. Sarah's story teaches us that God doesn't work on our timetable but on His perfect time. Sometimes the promise takes so long that the heart grows weary. Sometimes the soul even falters, but even so, God remains faithful. Sarah shows us that the Lord is capable of fulfilling what once seemed dead within us. When God promises, neither time, age, nor impossibility can prevent the fulfillment of His word. First place, Mary, the woman who said yes to God's plan. Mary was a simple young woman from Nazareth, a small town with no distinction, no luxury, and no appearance of greatness. In the eyes of the people, she was just another girl from the people. But God saw something precious in her, a heart willing to obey. When the angel Gabriel appeared and announced that she would give birth to the Son of God, Mary received news that would change her life forever. She knew it would bring questions, judgments, suffering, and a huge burden on her shoulders. Still, instead of running away, she responded with faith, "Behold the servant of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to your word." That yes from Mary was one of the most courageous acts in the entire Bible. She didn't have all the answers. She didn't know how she would face people's stares or what the future would hold, but she chose to trust. Mary accepted to carry in her womb the one who would save the world. She saw Jesus born in humility, grow in wisdom, and begin a ministry that would forever change the history of humanity. Mary didn't occupy a throne, didn't command armies, and didn't govern an empire, but she was chosen for one of the highest missions ever entrusted to a human being. Along the way, Mary kept many things in her heart. She saw miracles, heard profound words, and closely followed Jesus' work. But she also knew pain as few others did. She was present when the Son was rejected, persecuted, and finally crucified. While many fled in fear, Mary remained. Standing at the foot of the cross, she witnessed the suffering of the one she had carried, loved, and followed since his womb. Her love did not retreat, her faith did not fade, and her presence remained strong even in the darkest hour. Mary's story teaches us that God chooses simple people to fulfill grand plans. She shows us that true greatness lies in obedience, humility, and trust in God, even when the path is difficult. Mary was not great in the eyes of the world because of wealth or power, but because she said yes when many would say no. And because of that yes, hope entered the world once and for all. Mary reminds us that when God finds an available heart, He can write through it a story that spans generations. These women show us that true faith can be born in silence, grow in pain, and bloom in hope. And the same God who took care of them continues to take care of us. If this message touched your heart, write Amen in the comments. Until the next video, God bless.